All right, so today we are going to talk exact trig values. Should be about 10-15 minutes as far as things go. With this, Ms. Shar is going to come in at about 3 o'clock and just kind of finish out with you. We've got to get somewhere. So she'll come in and we'll be at homework time by that point in time. So today we've got exact trig values. So for example, we're going to work on finding the exact trig value of something like the sine of 135 degrees. These aren't things that you're going to be able to do, just plop into your calculator and hit sine 135 in your calculator, hit enter, and move on. We're going to do the exact ratios for these. So 1/2 or the square root of 3 over 2 or square root of 2 over 2 are going to be your solutions that you're going to have to do. When we do these, it's kind of a step-by-step procedure to do these. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to roughly draw this angle. And we talked about that last week, where a 135 degree angle is. So if I draw a 135 degree angle, I start on the axes, I go off in this direction, and 135 degrees is going to be somewhere right in there. So that's the first thing you are going to do, is you're going to draw that angle. The second step then is you are going to draw a vertical line wherever this angle ends. From the tip of your terminal side, you are going to draw a vertical line either down to the x-axis or up to the x-axis. Depending if it's in the first two quadrants, you would go down. If it's in the third and fourth quadrants, you would go up. But you draw a vertical line. That vertical line then, as you can see, is going to create a triangle. And you are going to have one of two types of triangles created today. You are either going to have a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle created today, or there's our 45, 45, 90, or you are going to have a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle created. And it has to be one of those two. It's either 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90. So let's say there's our 30, there's our 60, and so on and so forth. Now, these angles, we've talked about 45, 45, 90s and 30, 60, 90s before. We labeled them with like n, and n times the square root of 2. We're going to put numbers to them now. So the 45, 45, 90, your two legs are going to be 1s now. Instead of n's, we're going to replace it with a 1. So we say it's 1 to 1, and then the hypotenuse is going to be the square root of 2. And that's always what you're going to use when we do these with 45, 45, 90s. If you get a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, the side opposite the 30 is going to be 1. The side opposite the 60 is going to be the square root of 3. And the hypotenuse is going to be 2. Okay? And you're going to label the sides accordingly. Okay, so those are the two things you got to kind of keep in mind as we're doing these over the next couple days. If you create this triangle like we did, and you don't have one of those triangles, you've done something wrong. Okay? So now that we've created this triangle here, we have this triangle here, we want to be able to figure out what is the measure of that angle right there. That angle is called the reference angle. The reference angle is the angle that's created from your terminal side to the x-axis. And it's always going to be less than 90 degrees. So it goes from terminal side to the x-axis, never to the y-axis, always to the x-axis. And that angle right there is the angle that we're always going to use to find our ratios. So if I try to find the measure of that angle then, I know 2 right there is 180 degrees. I know to right there was 135 degrees. If I go 180 minus 135, that gives me a 45 degree angle. So that makes the measure of that angle right there 45. So we have a 45, 45, 90 degree triangle. Now we're going to label the sides, just like we did right here. We're going to label the sides. The two legs are going to be 1 and 1, and the hypotenuse is going to be the square root of 2. Now, one more thing you've got to think about when you're looking at these is if I go this direction, if I go to the left from the origin, is that positive or negative x value? If I go this way, it's negative, right? So this, in fact, is actually going to be a negative 1 because I'm going to the left with my triangle. It's going to be positive because I'm going up. So my y value is positive. It goes up. The hypotenuse is always positive. Always positive. So when we write the ratio now, because our original question was to find the sine ratio of 135 degrees. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the reference angle is the angle that we're given, that we know. And it's the angle that we're going to mark these off of. So the opposite of the 45 is 1. It's this 1 right here. The hypotenuse is the square root of 2. So our exact trig ratio for the sine of 135 is 1 over the square root of 2. Now remember, we've talked about this before, you can't leave that in the denominator. So you have to multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. So a more exact answer is the square root of 2 over 2. You can never leave radicals in the denominator. The way you get rid of them is multiply both the numerator and the denominator by that radical. So that is the exact trig ratio for the sine of 135. And that's what we're going to do today. Okay. Let's look at another one. Let's go the cosine ratio of 210 degrees. No network connected. Check your internet. Seems to still be working. So we're going to cosine of 210. So step 1, we're going to draw a 210 degree angle. 90, 180, it's going to fall in there somewhere. So there's my terminal side. Once we've got that terminal side then done, we are going to go from the terminal end up to the axes, up to the x-axis. So we draw a vertical line. There's our right angle. Now we have to find the measure of our reference angle. Our reference angle is right here. So if we look at the math, this was 210. This is 180. What's the measure of our reference angle? What's the difference between those two numbers? 30. So our reference angle is going to be 30 degrees. That makes this angle down there 60 degrees. So we've got 30, 60, 90. Now you go back to the other screen. Opposite the 30, we're always going to label it as 1. And because it's going down, it's going to be negative 1. The side opposite the 60 is always the square root of 3. And because it's going left, it's going to be negative. The hypotenuse is 2. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So from this angle, negative square root of 3 is our adjacent. Hypotenuse is 2. That's your exact trig value for the cosine of a 210 degree angle. Okay. And again, if you don't have a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90, you've done something wrong. If your reference angles aren't 45, 30, or 60, you've done something wrong. Recheck your math to make sure you've got that reference angle correct. Questions with this one? Okay, next one. Let's go the exact trig ratio for a tangent of negative 30 degrees. So negative 30, so we go, So we go counterclockwise, we go clockwise 30 degrees. There's our terminal side. Vertical line up to the x-axis. Now we have to find the measure of our reference angle, which again is right here. What's it going to be? If this is negative 30, that's 0. What's the difference? 30, yeah. So we've got a 30, a 90, and a 60. What's the length of the yellow side? Opposite the 30 is 1, but since it's going down, it's going to be negative. Opposite the 60 is the square root of 3. The hypotenuse is 2. What's tangent? What's the ratio? OA, opposite over adjacent? Negative 1 over the square root of 3. Everybody see how we got that? Opposite over adjacent. Yep. Now we can't have that. So the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, which is negative square root of 3 over the square root of 9, which is just 3. And that's your solution. And you're done. In order. Draw it first. Find your reference angle. Needs to be a 30-degree angle, 45-degree angle, or a 60-degree angle. Once you've got that done, then label your sides. It's either 1 to 2 to the square root of 3 or 1 to 1 to the square root of 2. Once you've done that, then go from your reference angle and write your ratio. Make sure that you don't have a denominator that's a radical. Okay. Try this one and then we'll call it good. Let's go the secant. Let's go the secant of 60 degrees. Give that one a shot on your own. Secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. So 2. That's what you should have got for that one. Be careful. I know I did one with 60 down here now this time. Okay, and I know the 1 has been over here a lot, but if this is a 60 degree, your 30 is up there. Opposite the 30 is 1. Opposite the 60 is the square root of 3. Hypotenuse is always 2. So be careful with that. We're going to do this for a couple days. Today we're doing it with degrees. Tomorrow we're going to do it with radians, but when we're doing it with radians tomorrow, we're just going to switch them to degrees anyway. So we've got a couple days here. We are having another assessment on Thursday over just this stuff and then the stuff we did from last week. It should be a good way to end before break. Okay? The assignment is inside of Schoology. It's sitting there. It's due by Thursday. You should have you got 15 minutes now. Should be enough time to just about get it done. If you have questions, kind of hold off for tomorrow a little bit, but Shara should